Okay, hello, my friends. My name is Darren Gerdes. It is 13 May 2024. This is remarkable. I mean, wow. 1,740 Russians off the battlefield. If you've been paying attention, it got as high as 13 and change the other day. But this is, and I went to check this, this is Russia suffers the highest daily casualties of the war so far in Ukraine. 1,740, 31 tanks, 42 armored combat vehicles, 15 artillery pieces, 59 vehicles and fuel tanks. And there's a couple reasons for this. One reason is just in general, the way that they're coming to the battlefield. And look at this. This is Andrew Perpetua's list of what he's been able to identify so far. And it's like 5-1 Russian to Ukrainian. The British intelligence update has one of the reasons, and I'll show you the other reason in a moment. Since the start of the war, Russia has likely increased its use of light vehicles such as all-terrain vehicles and off-road motorbikes to transport personnel to the front lines. Riding in a motorbike to the front line into combat's not the best plan. In November 2023, Russian President Vladimir Putin personally inspected newly acquired Chinese Desert Cross 1003 all-terrain vehicles from Odess Industries. Russia has reportedly purchased over 2,100 of these vehicles. It's likely that Russian forces have increasingly resorted to the use of lighter, faster vehicles to conduct reconnaissance of Ukraine defensive positions to allow for subsequent engagement using artillery, first-person view or one-way attack drones in an effort to consistently degrade Ukrainian forces. However, in sacrificing armor and firepower for increased mobility, light vehicles are far more vulnerable than their armored counterparts to an array of weapon systems. Okay, so that's one of the reasons. But the other reason is just they're attacking around Kharkiv, and they're attacking in some force around Kharkiv. And let's look at that because it's an ugly picture what's going on here. This is Anton Gurashenko. Audio messages exchanged in command chat of the Ukrainian 57th Motorized Brigade in Vovoshansk. Lieutenant Colonel, please let us sleep. We've been working nonstop for 2 days. Commander, the whole country is counting on us. We will sleep in the next world, but now we have to save this world. We have no choice. We took an oath, die or kill. Wow. Just wow. Okay, that's where they are. That's the intensity of it. Okay, Russians have tactical success according to Ukraine's general staff. And so over the past 24 hours, the Russians carried out 22 assault operations in these areas, 14 of which are still ongoing. RT talks about this, how Kyiv replaces a key commander amid Russia's advance. Now, you take RT with a grain of salt, but you still factor it in and try to understand how they're projecting things. But apparently, that's what's happened. The last weekend, the military leadership decided to replace the current commander. He was only there since April, and the new commander, Mikhail Drapati, was selected as his replacement. Volodymyr Zelensky described the battlefield changes as locations moving from the gray zone to the zone of fighting. Okay, the new general, this is him. Amid the offensive of Russian troops in the north of Kharkiv region, the commander of the military unit has been changed to Brigadier General Mikhailo Drapati. He's been appointed now. So they've changed out the general. And so what's the reason for that? Well, I think you'll see it in a moment. The Russians simply walked in, Ukrainian troops in Kharkiv, tell BBC. And here's some of what they told them. Ukraine soldier has taken the unusual step of publicly criticizing Ukraine's preparations to stop Russia from pushing into the northeast of the country, a threat that commanders had been anticipating ever since they repelled a first invasion 2 years ago. Huh? What's going on? Okay, the first line of fortifications and mines simply did not exist. What? You had 2 years to set up, some rows of fortifications. Like Surovikin set up these lines for Russia's defense in a matter of a few months, maybe even weeks in some places. And you've been at war with Russia for 2 years and couldn't get it done? Describing what happened when Russian ground troops, backed by airstrikes and artillery, simply walked through the border area on Friday, he wrote, "The enemy freely entered the gray zone along the corridor line, which in principle should not have been gray." Yeah, like they should have been able to prevent this. In 2 years, there should have been concrete fortifications on the Ukrainian border. Though a platoon commander also defending the border said it would have been impossible to build any fortifications because Russians bombed the crap out of that area all the time. Okay, but still, something you should have had some kind of something pointed at the enemy at like But if we had the weapons, which we should have, even if we had 5 or 6 self-propelled howitzers, an artillery weapon, it could have made a big difference. The soldier was asking to remain anonymous for obvious reasons. So, wow, I mean, that's pretty significant and pretty bad. Now, I heard about this yesterday, and I wasn't going to say anything until I had actual hard news confirmation. But yeah, apparently it wasn't there, and we don't know whether it wasn't there because there was, somebody was on the take, or because they just were negligent, or what. We just don't know, so don't speculate yet. A Ukrainian recon commander in Kharkiv said the first line of defense was missing in a betrayal that allowed Russian troops to just walk in. It was just missing. Wow. Okay. Russia is trying to reestablish a foothold in the region through a new offensive, claiming this weekend to capture several border villages. Ukrainian military observers reported that between 30,000 to 35,000 Russian troops gathered for the push. So the Russians are pretty serious about this. Alexander Syrsky, chief of Ukraine's armed forces, said on Sunday that the situation in Kharkiv had significantly worsened. Well, okay, yeah, I'm sure. Now, I'm showing this. This was the Super Bowl 2024 results. Because the day of the Super Bowl, I was talking to a friend at church, and I was saying, well, what do you predict? And he was predicting San Francisco would win. San Francisco was the better team. They had this, they had that, they had the other thing. And I said, well, Kansas City can win, but only if they play a perfect game. Like, they can't afford to have unforced errors, to screw up in any way. And they barely did. I mean, they barely squeaked by, but they had almost a perfect game. They didn't have all these extra penalties that dogged the 49ers, and they won. And as a way of analogy, Ukraine can win, but they can't do many more of the things like they did here in, like, just letting the Russians walk in. Okay. I hope that makes sense, that analogy. Russia reports destroying 47 drones and missiles from Ukrainian attacks. Well, of course, they destroyed all of them. That's how they report things. Russia's defense ministry said on Monday that the country's air defenses destroyed 31 drones, 16 missiles launched by Ukraine in overnight attacks. The ministry said 7 drones and 4 guided missiles were shot down over Russian-occupied Crimea, 8 drones were destroyed over Kursk, and 4 drones intercepted over Luhansk region. Okay, but when they say that something's intercepted, sometimes they mean, that it was intercepted by the ground. Powerful explosions in the occupied town of Surinko in the Luhansk region. A Russian ammunition depot has been hit there. Where is that? I was curious. And one of the fun things about this is I get to learn a lot about geography. Here's the region, and so it's all the way on the border with Russia, and the front line is somewhere out like here. So, yeah, it's a little ways, and they apparently hit it. Ukraine's security service targets a large oil depot and substation in Russia overnight. Drones belonging to the security service were actively operating in Lipetsk and Belgorod Oblast last night, causing fire at Stary Oskol. Okay, so where is that? That's up here. Okay, here's Kiev, here is Kharkiv, and it's up here, and Belgorod somewhere in here. Here's another one. SBU says drones attacked Russian oil depot and power substation, and this is the one with the Belgorod region. So the hits keep coming, and so, yeah, I mean, it was intercepted, but intercepted by a oil depot or power substation or whatever else. Okay, they also knocked out a Ka-52 Alligator gunship, which is supposed to be a pretty powerful gunship. The Ka-52 has been touted by the Kremlin as the world's best gunship. I mean, of course, that's by the Kremlin. Helicopters inflicted heavy costs on Ukraine. Man-portable air defense systems like the American-made Stingers have been among the most effective weapons at killing the Ka-52 helicopter. So there we are with that. Now, In the meantime, Russian propagandists are saying some amazing things. Russia's first channel is openly encouraging Russian servicemen, quote, not to wait for the drone, unquote, but commit suicide themselves. Quote, the significance of life is exaggerated, unquote, the propagandist urges, and he says that killing yourself on the battlefield is not suicide, but sacrifice. Look at this. At worst, a painful death. Why? What are they afraid of? It's sacrifice. To give your life for your country, for people, for God, for the church, and that's why it all needs to be written and explained. We exaggerate the meaning of death. Now, someone says to me, Sergey, stop it. I'm like, whoa! Like, he's actually saying that. Okay. RT, again. Putin removes Shoigu as Russia's defense minister. I'm not going to talk about that here. I've gone way over time that I was going to spend, but I'll talk about that tonight and explain his replacement and things along those lines. I saw this and I thought, isn't that amazing? Russian armor is being protected by plywood. Like, I don't even know what to say here. It's just, and this is a turtle tank trying to dodge little few $100 drones that can knock it out, and so the plywood is defending armor. Just amazing. Another amazing thing, Jake Broe started a birthday fundraiser. He was going to raise $40,000 for 2 trucks for NAFO, and he's now up to 337. Actually, from the time I started this, let's see if it changes. 337, and it's now at, let's see, and it's now at 346. So before, as I was amassing these videos and these news articles this morning, it was 337. He's now at 346. He's going to blow through that 400,000 number. He could easily raise $500,000 before his birthday or more, and that's just absolutely fascinating. Now, it's fascinating for this reason. I was on the shills the other day, and I asked Rick the Ukrainian. Here's Starsky and Greg Terry and Mercado and Rick, and I asked, so how many trucks have been raised for NAFO? And he said about 350. Well, if you look at that, 350, Jake Broe alone will raise 20 by the end of the day. And that's just amazing. All right. Well, thank you for your time. Thank you for the likes, the shares, the subscribes. Thank you to my patrons. And thank you for being the kind of person that cares about Ukraine.